Before I begin making my wig, I like to begin with a lace frontal that's already customized and has its knots bleached. The next step is to tint the lace. I like to tint my lace with RIT dye in the colors tan and dark brown because I feel like they create the best flesh toned colors. Depending on your skin tone, you'll use different amount of dark brown and tan. Tan has a more of a orangey undertone, while the dark brown has a reddish undertone, so I just add more tan than dark brown to get the perfect brown mixture. And I don't dip my entire lace in first. I cut out a small tester piece from the lace frontal and let it sit in the water mixture for a minute. And on the right, you can see after only like 2 minutes, the dyed lace is already pretty like dark brown. And I like to fold my frontal in half and dip it in because I only want the nearest part of the hairline colored because my scalp is light, forehead is dark, so it gives me that effect. So I'm just taking a few measurements, and I'm taking a measurement from my hairline to the nape of my neck so I'll know how far to place my lace frontal on my wig cap. And I like to use these adjustable wig caps because they give you easy access to your scalp whenever your wig gets itchy, and I prefer these wig hooks over an elastic band because they cause no tension on your head or give you headaches. And now I'm just sewing on an elastic band onto the frontal. This will help keep my lace frontal taut as I sew it and also help it lay flat when it's on my head because it mimics how it would lay on my head if I would put on the wig. And I positioned the lace frontal where I wanted it, and now I'm going to start pinning it to prep for sewing. And I pull the ear tabs very taut because I want it to lay as flat as possible, and I pin on the edge of the frontal. And depending how far you want the lace frontal to stick out behind your ear, you'll place it close to the edge of the cap or more into the cap, but I prefer for my lace frontal to lay over my ears, so I place it on the farthest edge of the cap. And those are liquid lipstick stains that couldn't wash off. And I'm also pulling back towards the temple of the lace frontal because it gives me a really nice curved shape, sort of how my forehead is shaped, or even your forehead. Doing this step is very important because it helps the lace frontal lay very flush to your head, even without adding your elastic band or wig straps. And as you can see, I can barely put my hand through the frontal because it's so taut. And I created this like teacup dispenser shape, like cone shape. It's very important that your lace frontal creates this shape before you sew it on because it won't fit properly. Just sewing across the frontal. I'm doing several stitches on the edge of the frontal because I want that part to be tacked down very well. And I'm just doing blanket stitches across the back of the frontal. And that is how the frontal looks like. So usually I like to sew down the back of the frontal because I feel like it gives the flattest result. My Miss Hair wig that I made it entirely with a sewing machine.
What if I go stronger? What if I get higher? What if I start doing things
And now I'm just securing my first weft.
my own way? I will not surrender. I will do my best until I get put under.
Now I'm getting ready to flip over the track. I don't cut my wefts, I prefer to flip over, as cutting wefts in my opinion takes too much time. I pierce through the weft when I'm getting ready to flip over and loop the thread around the needle 3 times to get it to really tack down the weft onto the wig cap. And then I pierce through the fold and pierce through the wig cap and then wrap my needle around 3 times so I can get the, I'm kind of struggling a little, so I can get the weft to stay flat on the cap. In the area I'm pointing at, I'm sewing beneath the wig hook. I don't know how to describe them. They're the loops that the wig hooks onto, and you just want to sew beneath that so you don't sew through them because you won't be able to hook your wig hooks onto them. And again, I'm just using the same method I used to flip over. I pierce through the weft about 2 times and wrap the thread around my needle 2, 3 times, and then flip it over and then pierce through the fold and then make another pierce adjacent to that so I can make it lay flat. And as I sew, I'm kind of making a curve following these dotted lines. And another great thing about this cap is that it already comes with the lines on them, so you don't have to make them yourself. And as I sew, I'm just showing that I'm making it curved. And this is the strap that your wig hooks go through. You don't want to sew through that, so I just moved it out of the way. When I finish a weft, I like to start off where I finished and just do several stitches to connect the 2 wefts together. And when I sew through a strap, I like to make a pierce on either side. So I make a pierce on the right, in the middle, and on the left side of the strap to make it super secure. And once I get towards the ear tab, I use the same technique to flip it over. And towards the ear tabs, I like to pierce through the frontal just for extra security as I pierce through the weft as well. And as I sew through the weft next to the fold because I want the hair to lay flat near the ear tab.
Things I know I will regret. I will make my own way. I will not surrender. I will do my best until I get put under. What if I go stronger? 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 What if I go stronger?
And don't be afraid to sew through the plastic on the cap because the plastic can easily rip off. And again, I like to use blanket stitches when I sew on my wefts. I feel like they're more secure than doing whip stitches. And when I reach about 3 tracks above the ear tab, I like to start building this dipped shape. I don't really know how to describe it, but I'd start curving upwards more to create a square at the top of the wig. So this is a shape I'm just creating. It's not too difficult to create as you sew. This is just a zoomed in part of the edge of the frontal. Since the frontal there's not much space or cap to sew onto, I just like to pierce through the frontal and wrap my thread around my needle 3 times, and when I flip over again I pierce through the fold and wrap around my needle 3 times so I can get it to lay flat on the frontal. And as I reach the top, I'm continuing to make the rounded square shape. I got that inspiration from the way actual lace frontal wigs are made that you'd buy from the store. I tried making a circle before, but I just didn't like how it lay. Making it into a square slash box shape allows your frontal to lay flatter and doesn't create a lump in like the crown of your head. And I'm just sewing up my final track, and that is the completed wig. And since this cap has excess plastic, I'm just ripping that off. This process to rip it off literally takes a minute. And to get rid of these red pieces of thread, I make 2 pierces on the top and on the bottom with my seam ripper and just pull the thread right out. And they're no plastic. And now I'm just going to cut off the excess cap. Now I'm just going to cut off my wig hooks from the cap, and I'm actually going to re-sew them on the lace frontal because they'll help really make the wig secure. And when I cut my lace, cut it straight, but as I reach where my temple area is, I like to make a slight curve. I learned that that just fits better on the head. And I'm just making the hairline a little bit straighter because that's how I like it to lay. And that is how I make my wigs.